And introducing secondary characters is also very difficult. How do we do that without overwhelming readers? I had mentioned before that using them as cameos, backgrounds, grandpa comes in or the neighbor brings over a pie, whatever. And then we need the neighbor in a later chapter, but all right, I think we're going to ask Melany next a few questions, and then we're going to discuss her piece. I will have you, Stacey, start with feedback, but before we do, I want to ask Melany what her vision is for this book. Go ahead.
So not my MCS, my vision.
First, your vision.
So my vision, my goal is to publish the book and have it be, you know, if I just write one really great book, that's all I'm looking for. I'd rather write one good book than 3 okay books. So I'm early in the process. So I'm trying to get through that first crappy draft.
It's very hard, and I like that. I think the only way to get published these days is to treat any book that you write as that one that you want to give your all to. I don't see any other way of being seen above all of the content that's out there, except for by having an excellent book. So good for you. I'm glad to hear that. Having said that, Melany, I know you can do this, and let's try and stick to 90 seconds. Will you give us the MCS for your story?
Sure. Yeah, so my protagonist is Anna, who's a portrait photographer in her 30s. It's a contemporary story where she is on the verge of having her breakthrough project in photography when her mom's best friend calls her home because her dad has gone missing. So she goes home, which is a small Midwestern town that she does not have a good relationship with. And through the assistance of her best friend, Ryan, who's a cop, they do find him. And she realizes that he likely has undiagnosed dementia.
The cop or her dad?
Her dad. Her dad. That's important. That's part of my MCS.
Although the other would be very interesting. You have to.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
As we see the family dynamic, she has a close relationship with her mom, but like a strained relationship with her dad, though they bond in the woods. Their house has some woods and they live near the woods. And there's a reclusive family that owns most of the woods near their property. So he continues to have more outbursts from time to time that conflict with her upcoming need to be in Vegas. He ends up having an accident where he's hurt and ends up in the hospital. And while he's medicated and confused, he shares something that she didn't know about their family that causes her to make a really big mistake and then bolt for Vegas. Vegas doesn't go super well, but then she pulls a rabbit out of her hat and finishes that project. And then she goes back home to New Orleans when her mom's best friend comes and finds her and explains the background to the secret her dad revealed. And then she ultimately goes back home and they find a way to work through the revelation of what she found out.
Okay. And now can you set up this chapter for us?
So this chapter's fairly early in the story. Her father has just been found and is back home. So the chapter starts with her thinking about her photography project that she's getting ready to go to. And then her and her dad have an episode, spend some time together out in the woods.
Excellent. All right. So I'm going to ask Stacey to start with feedback for you.
Melany, I appreciated this chapter. It set up a lot of really good things. So let me just kind of go through stuff that jumped out at me, kind of going all the way through, and we'll hit some stuff. At the end of the first paragraph, you have a line, the only line actually. In this moment, it felt like an embrace, talking about the chair, the throne that she was sitting in, made out of rocks. In this moment, it felt like an embrace, but soon enough, it would be a problem. That sentence jumped out at me because I wasn't sure why it would be a problem. Was this a bit of foreshadowing of something that was to come, or were you intending to mean the vine was going to overrun the chair? I just wasn't sure. So I was I mean, if you go back to my previous chapter, I like a good bit of foreshadowing. So I do like mysteries, and I do like you teasing me. But I wasn't sure if you were teasing me or if you were describing the vine. What was it?
It's both.
Oh, was it?
If you know trumpet vine, it's both.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's interesting. I think I would maybe make that maybe a little clearer that you're setting something up, because it was ambiguous enough to confuse me, and then it stopped me. I really liked the story about the clock with Lincoln. I thought the way you described it and worked it out, I appreciated that. We'll put a pin in that to come back to later, because I'm not sure. Well, I'll just talk about it now. Reading the whole chapter, I'm not sure where you were going with it, and I don't need all the answers right when you ask a question or when you set up something. But it felt like I needed something to indicate that this had more of a meaning that was going to come into play more, because otherwise it's just sort of felt like a standalone interesting story, but I wasn't sure what the tie-in was necessarily, because you said my father has an interesting relationship with time, and that was the only aspect of time that I felt that we saw, and that really wasn't even in the present. It was just her thinking about this. So that was one thing. On page 3, the second paragraph, I liked how you described being in Oak Bend as wearing a wool turtleneck. Too hot, too itchy. I like that metaphor. I thought that was great. But then right below that, and I'm not being critical about this, I'm just kind of throwing it out as an observation. You're 2.5 pages into the chapter, and this is your first bit of dialogue or character action or anything. And that just, yeah, I don't know. It felt like maybe something needed to be happening a little bit sooner. Because that felt, given this story, it felt like that was a long time for some reason.
Well, I think that there is something going on, Melanie, where you lead with the introspection and then you follow with the action. And I think that might be dangerous, at least to do it consistently. I think you have to bring the reader into the chapter with something that's a little bit more active. I think Stacey has a good point there. It's just something to think about.
Yeah, maybe, and if that's a pattern, yeah, that may be something to look at, to think about. So the next page, on page 4, top of page 4, again, just an observation, that first paragraph, there just seemed to be a lot of yellow in this chapter. There was a lot of yellow in that paragraph, and there just seemed to be a lot of that color that kind of jumped out at me. Also, right at the end of that, you say, at the end of that paragraph, she loved her place in New Orleans, but she was bricked in from all sides. So again, just an observation, you in this paragraph describe New Orleans as, my words, suffocating, or on the previous page you described Oak Bend as suffocating. So I think you want to differentiate between those a bit more. Going down to the bottom of that page, you probably talked about this in the last couple chapters, and I just don't remember, just because we're spread out and I've been rushed the last couple meetings. But if you have introduced Ambrose or Silas before, I did not. You did not. So this was the first mention. Okay. So it felt like I should know who they were, the way you had written it. And so it kind of threw me off a little bit, especially because in the previous chapter, and correct me if I'm wrong, I felt like when she and her dad went on the walk behind the house, you described everything behind the house very eloquently. And Silas and Barton, or Ambrose and Silas, didn't come up at that point. And so it just felt like, okay, I feel like we already got this description, but now you're describing it again, but differently with these other people. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. It almost felt like they should be introduced in the previous chapter as you're describing this whole area. Did I miss something there?
No, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay. Again, page 6, I say again because this is where the part of Anna that frustrates me. She notices the compost pile. She goes back to her father and doesn't ask him about the compost pile. And again, if that's an intentional character action, then I would love to see her think about asking him, but then decide not to, or the reasons that she's changing her mind or something, because otherwise it just looks like a missed opportunity. And because I felt like the logical thing for her to do, if that bothers her, if that was out of the norm for her dad, would be for her to bring that up. Again, middle of page 7, we're talking about Lyle, and again, I'm wondering who Lyle is. Is that a new character too?
I don't think he's been mentioned yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he has been.
Okay. Again, it just felt like the way he was just so casually mentioned it just felt like, wait, I feel like I should know who these people are. And then right before the section break, she's talking with her dad about Lyle and Hugh, Lyle's father. But she makes a leap. Her dad turned his attention to his tools. No, that wasn't it. It's when she is talking with her dad about the Bartons, and he says, you don't know the Bartons very well. And that makes her wonder if somehow her dad is talking about her, that he is disappointed in her or something. So it felt like a leap of an assumption that I didn't quite follow. And so I didn't follow the breadcrumbs there.
Did anyone else have that sensation? Okay, I'm seeing Pam and Alex both nodding their head. I did as well, Melanie. So that's something that you need to look into.
Good. Middle of page 8, when we're talking about the patio, you just said the patio was for contemplation, but then her mom turns on an Art Garfunkel song and they start dancing rather embarrassingly in front of their daughter. A little cringy, I felt, uncomfortable as a reader watching that. So I couldn't decide if the patio was for contemplation or if it was for dancing. And so again, if it was always historically for contemplation, but now suddenly it's louder, they're using it for different purposes, I think that's an opportunity to show changes in them as they maybe get older, or that she's out of touch with what's going on with them or something, but it's just mentioned in it. So that then it feels inconsistent.
let me ask you a question, Melanie. Are they excluding her? Is this meant to show that they do exclude her? It's not just something that's in her head?
I just think they have a very loving relationship, and that's just how they are. That's their relationship has not changed. So she always sort of feels like an intruder because their relationship is closer than Anna's relationship with them. And obviously her relationship is different, but yeah, she always sort of feels like she's on the outside looking in.
It felt like that was a new thing to see her parents dance like that. That was just in my head. And so, yeah, I think it would be helpful for Anna to comment on that. Oh, there they go again. I've seen this my entire life, or this is my cue to leave, or something like that. I would feel relaxed about it. But I think the way you set up the patio as a thoughtful place for us to sit around and contemplate life, and then they put on music and start dancing, it was like, oh, this is new. And so I, as a reader, started feeling uncomfortable, thinking Anna was feeling uncomfortable when she obviously wasn't. So just think about that. I really liked it. Was this the complete chapter? Or did you cut off at?
Yeah, originally this was the second half of my third chapter, but it was too long, and I feel like, I don't know, I thought this worked better on its own, but we'll see if it does. You tell me.
It felt like there was more coming. It felt like you hit a 2,500 word limit and you stopped, but you have another 1,000 words left or something. So yeah, I think I wanted a little bit more with something going on there. So overall, to me, I felt like the chapter was very engaging to read, but it felt a little disjointed and had a lot of missed opportunities between the story about Lincoln, the missing print, that she'd given them working in the yard and discovering the compost pile, being invited outside, but then they start dancing and she leaves. So it just felt like these were supposed to be clues to something, but I wasn't sure Anna was picking up on the clues. And maybe they weren't designed to be clues, and if they weren't, then it felt like I'm not sure all these things are needed then.
Melanie, let me ask you this. What is the main function of this chapter for you?
Yep.
So it's to the watch becomes important later, to show her and her dad's common interest in the woods and nature, and that's a place where they bond, but also to show some disconnects, like the loving marriage they have, but that she doesn't have the same kind of loving relationship with her dad. Not so much her mom, but with her dad.
So those are three very big tasks to accomplish in one chapter. Could you make it two of those three things, perhaps, or even one? Now, you in a previous chapter, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
You can't hear me. I can't hear me. Oh.
Sometimes your sound is coming a little in and out.
Yeah, it comes in and out.
So sorry.
While she's doing it, let me say one thing. Since the timepiece is so important, I think it might be helpful for her to, at some point in this chapter, walk by the glass case where it's displayed, or I don't think he would normally wear it, but for her to see it in real time, to acknowledge it, because then I think that would solidify, oh, that is an important story rather than just a rabbit trail.
He actually keeps it hidden. It's not out in plain sight. So
okay, all right.
what I wanted to know is you have mentioned and you've shown the bond in the woods in a previous chapter, correct?
Okay, Alex is saying yes, I trust him.
Yeah, the previous chapter they went on a walk together.
Okay.
So now thinking about the watch and thinking about the disconnects, what is priority?
The watch, I have some flexibility on when I introduce that. I probably want to do it in the first half of the book. But I have some flexibility on when that is introduced. I felt like I didn't want to wait too long, but
Think about how that could be an opportunity in the story, where instead of just worrying about sticking it in at the right place, how does it fit into the story and help pull it together into a more cohesive whole? Think about that, and then I think you'll find a better place for it. That's my thinking. But to take a look at the whole thing, those are three big goals for one chapter. And introducing secondary characters is also very difficult. How do we do that without overwhelming readers? I have mentioned before that using them as cameos, backgrounds, grandpa comes in or the neighbor brings over a pie, whatever. And then we meet the neighbor in a later chapter, but we're already somewhat familiar with them because we've seen them. Gee, that was a great pie that you brought, Mrs. Davis. Thank you so much for doing that the other day when Anne just had arrived. There are ways of introducing these things over time so they don't overwhelm us and keeping priorities straight for the readers. Remember, you're directing the reader. I know we all like readers to discover things and so forth, but there's a difference between some decent direction and chaos. Now, I'm not saying this is chaos. This is not chaos at all. Okay, let me back up about 3 steps. Okay, so we all like to have the reader interact with us, but there's a very fine line between interacting and becoming lost and losing the point of what the author wants to convey. Okay, so be careful, all of you. I'm not picking on you, Melanie. Be careful, all of you, with that. We want the reader to be engaged, to be able to anticipate, to develop theories of their own, to become profilers of your characters. By the same token, we don't want to send them in the wrong direction too much. So it's important, again, that balance. That's why we always come back to the MCS. Are we going off on a trail that maybe is the wrong one for the reader? Bringing it back in, reeling things back in, or maybe making a change that we think is going to be stronger fundamentally. Stacey, did you have any more thoughts for us? Okay, thank you so much for some great comments. I'm going to ask Pam to go next.
This chapter for me was full of potential. And that being said, it pulled me in a few different directions and I wasn't sure what to focus on. One of my questions you answered when I heard your MCS, because I wondered, why am I learning about the Bartons? Why is there some emphasis on these people? But you mentioned something about a secret in your MCS and somehow the Barton name came through. So I'm like, all right, so I'm supposed to know about them. My other question is Ryan a key player? She gets a text from him. She's going to go meet him. If so, I kind of want to see what kind of a backstory they have together to build up this connection between them. And then my third question was, she was brought there because her father was missing. He's been found, but they're indicated there's some change in him. And like Stacey mentioned, I think there were some opportunities for you to show that more. I think stylistically, some of the introspection could be replaced with some emotional reaction and action. And I do agree that action didn't start until she asks Mom when she's looking out the window and she asks mom, but there's a lot of time between mom asking her a question and Anna answering that, where you're telling us this stuff. So that narrative telling, I think a lot of that could be replaced with some showing. That compost pile, for me, I kept going, wait, this is not just, is this a time to talk about, not talk about, for her to even show maybe her brows furrow in puzzlement that dad has this, or she turns to ask him something and he's gone. But also she's digging in this fertile soil, and I kept thinking, is there any positive memory of this place? Oak Bend is like a wool turtleneck, but yet she's loving this fertile soil. Is there a connection to her love for photography? An opportunity for me to see where this love of gardening in the earth could perhaps connect her to her past. The timepiece, it's interesting that you brought that up, that you said that's going to be so important later, because for me, it was important in that I thought you were planting a theme. Time, lost time, misuse of time, the passage of time. And I thought if that story started with dad used to tell me a story, and then you introduce the timepiece, to me, it connects the timepiece to dad more solidly. Does that make sense? So I think I just want to see more of the narration connected to Anna. It feels like here's some stuff I'm going to tell you, and then here's Anna. But I want Anna to become intrinsic with the stuff you're telling me. That makes sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
The thing is that there's so much beauty in this chapter, and there's so much potential, but I think you have to just zero in and keep that focus on Anna. This is Anna's story, and it's how Anna's impacted by dad, how Anna's life changes because she screws up, maybe, but not really, in Vegas. It's Anna's life that got uprooted when she had to leave New Orleans to come here. So I think if you keep, it's almost like a mental Post-it note, Anna, 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 and make sure that everything you're telling us is connecting to her, then I think that potential is going to rise up, because you have everything. It's just finding those ties to pull them together.
That's a really great note. Thank you. Very nice.
And I also did agree, Silas, that when you said people were a little leery of him because of his appearance and behavior, I kept waiting for that appearance and that behavior. I'm like, what did he look like and what did he do? So, and it's a simple sentence. Maybe it's he wore a suit and tie every day, no matter whether he was chopping lumber or gardening, and he never spoke. I don't know. That's enough. You don't need to be a big, long dissertation about it, but it's enough to go, oh, okay, now we know why Silas is an outcast. Something like that. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Alex, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree about Silas. I'll just start with that. Actually, I'll start with this. I actually really love this chapter. I thought it had the level of sort of description and depth and pacing that it feels like the book wants. And so I think it's there tonally and atmospherically, and for me the fixes are relatively minor, and they're just, they speak to bigger themes, but they're it's I agree, they're add 2 sentences and then it's kind of fixed. So anyway, I'm coming from a slightly different angle, I guess, because I'm the kind of reader who just likes description and so on, but take every opportunity to describe character. If there's a chance to reveal character or plot, and most of us are writing more character-driven stories, so that's the focus. But if you've got a chance to like show us about a character, show what they look like, show it that, and I think the Silas thing is definitely right. my note to myself was, what does he look like? What is, what is his behavior? And I think a sentence of each of those would give us what we need. Um, the opposite example would be he never washed and he wore clothes that were so ratty that you could see his hips. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know. Who knows? Right? Like, just, you can go completely the other way. I don't know either. And I think Pam's idea or mine could both work, and we don't, I want to see what he looks like. What is so weird about Silas coming from this rich family that makes him not just an outcast in that family, but an outcast for the town? And somebody that we want to, whenever his name comes up, we're going to be like, up, watch out. Here comes Silas, right? So yeah, take every opportunity to do that. I know you like looking at specific lines. So top of page 2, after the phone call, over the next several hours, she laid out a vision for the shoot in Vegas. What's her vision? I want to know the vision. I want to know what is her, what changed in that phone call. I don't need to know the phone call, but I definitely want to know what's her new thought about the photography, because every chapter needs a serious photography moment, and this is the one for this.
Melany, why do you not disclose that?
That's a good question. I discovered it as she discovered it.
Mhm.
So it has to do with Stacey, you'll appreciate this. It has to do with the yellow dandelions, the glow of the yellow coming out of the craggy tree. So I actually have an image of what her portraits are ultimately going to look like. However, I don't want to describe it here because there's going to be a problem in Vegas. Imagine that. And what she originally envisions is not going to happen, but the portrait that is successful is going to be based on what this thing from the woods, her inspiration from the woods, or at least that I got from the woods. So in other words, I don't know what her plan A is, but I now know what her plan B is.
Here's something to think about. We were talking earlier with Stacey about holding things back. I think if you reveal something here and then give us a reason she can't use that in Las Vegas, show what she does instead, that doesn't work, and then show us why this plan B does work, that's much more interesting than holding it back. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. Yeah.
Okay. I'm so glad you mentioned that. That makes me very happy because that's a really specific example of how you can make one moment into 4 important moments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And add depth to the photography aspect of the book, add depth to her character, give the reader a sense that, oh, she's got plans. She has a plan A and a plan B. And maybe here it's only the plan A, but it's like, oh, I thought I had a plan A, but I really didn't. Now I really have one. And it's this color. Like, I've got a color scheme. Okay, I'm going to go with that. And that's all we need in this chapter. And then we get to Vegas 3 chapters from now, and everything is painted red, and she's like, oh, no, I can't do that, right? Or I don't know, whatever it is. But then we realize, like, oh, she's smart. She can adapt to the situation. So it tells us more about her. Yeah, it's only positives to reveal it now. What's her plan A,
And possibly the formula that she has, the plan A, that's not going to work out, is missing one small thing that she won't figure out until she grows a little bit as a character. And then it starts to come together. Okay? That's what makes a good book a great book. That's the difference. It's all of those things. I know I do this a lot. It could be the church and the steeple, but actually it's that idea of everything coming together. It's just so important. And that's that moment of great satisfaction for the reader later. It's built on a lot of little moments that you have carefully compounded over the course of the story. Yeah. Alex, oh, wait, who's, yeah. Pam,
And-
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And that as you as the writer now have more to work with. I mean, for me, at the end of the day, that's what's most important, is that you now have a new reference point that's a solid one that tells you more about her, and that when she ends up in Vegas and has to change her plan, that shows growth and depth even farther than further than where you're at right now. So yeah, it's absolutely worth. And plus, I want to know what her thought process is. I want to know what her plans are for this Vegas shoot. I want to know, what is she thinking? Because this is again a limited third. Where is she at? What does she want? What is she thinking? I want to know what her thoughts are on this shoot coming up, which is probably taking up a bunch of her brain while she's trying to deal with her parents. And what she really wants to do is just think about Vegas and what's coming up in her career. So it's a positive plan too. It could be a real positive in her mind of like, oh, at least this is coming. At least I'm going to get to Vegas soon. The Lincoln parts I actually really loved, and I'm totally fine with the watch coming up right now. I would definitely call it a pocket watch rather than a timepiece, because timepiece could be early 1800s. There was still a lot of those desktop glass cased, Breguet, the Harrison style. So I was actually picturing, sort of a late 1700s Harrison style timepiece. Sorry, my family are all watchmakers, so it's I always perk up when they show up. But it's pretty clear it's a pocket watch. She's seen it before, even if it's hidden, which I think, why not behind a glass case? I don't know. She could see it in real time. Regardless, and she would have seen it in her head. Probably seen the back open and seen the workings. Like, why not? Just because it's cool. Lots of neat stuff to describe. And then the eldest son Robert, and then Pierce and Abraham, as in Lincoln. I don't know enough about the Lincoln family to be able to track who's who there. So I think for the sake of the reader there, just like who's related to who, descriptions probably needed. Maybe there's people who are more into Lincoln's history that I could, I don't know. Likewise, maybe how far is Springfield from this town? Like just a passing phrase,
It's close. Yeah.
I figured it sounded like it. Yeah. It would have been a half a day's horse and buggy ride back in 1860, whatever, 1840, right? Probably. Sorry, I lost my. So yeah, describe the watch, definitely.
Again, it's a question of prioritizing and how much the reader can manage to sort of take in one chapter. It might be that it's fine here, but it also might be that it gets lost. So you have to weigh those things. Maybe the timing is right for the watch. Also, think about this, Melany, not to get you too concerned, but think about how time and time lost relate to the watch, relate to everything else in this story, because this is going to be a beautiful thread for you. So keep that, at close at hand when you can't sleep at night. All right, carry on. Alex, why don't we finish up with this and then we'll get to Pam next.
And then the last note was just on page 5, that her dad began to stop trespassing teenagers and give them a lesson on respect and the law. By doing what? I mean, what did he do? You know, that would tell us so much about his character, and also her reaction to him, you know, if she's horrified by what he says to them, or if she is like kind of like, yeah, he's kind of right, you know, I wish he wasn't so mean about it, or, you know, who knows, right? That would tell us both about him and about her, and then about the relationship. So that
Well,
those places for him.
it serves a lot of purposes, though. Think about this. It's
Yeah.
what the town is like, what he's like, what his dynamic with his daughter when she was a teenager was like. Consider all of these things opportunities to show. And again, this is allowing you to trust that reader more. Oh, they're making that connection now. Look, if he did that with her when she was that age, then I get why she did this. You know, all of these things will connect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex, for your comments. We're gonna
Bardsy delivers the tools, guidance, and support you need to produce compelling novels. Our well-researched and thoroughly tested approach includes our minimum complete story, a 90-second exercise that keeps your writing on track while fueling creativity. Bardsy Publishability Index, a 23-dimension checklist that offers attainable goals and provides actionable feedback. And our brand new comprehensive character developer that helps you construct unforgettable characters. Come see for yourself at Bardsy.com today. Try our workshop or enter our first chapter contest. Then, when you're ready, Elite Membership delivers writing groups, personal coaching, and a curated community. With Bardsy, your work will captivate everyone, from agents to publishers, and, most importantly, your readers.